Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new YouTube video. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to use the chess.com API. Now this API allows you to view all types of information, so you can view like the moves in a game, you can view the top leaderboards, you can view the rank of specific players, and you can do all kinds of stuff related to chess.com. So if you are not familiar with chess.com, this is probably the most popular website to play chess on. And actually, personally, myself, after the Queen's Gambit on Netflix and all of the hype around chess recently, I just started playing chess. So I've been really into chess. I actually created a chess club here on chess.com that you guys can join because I'm planning on hosting like tournaments and events and stuff in the future. So I will leave a link to this page, but if you guys enjoy chess, definitely join this club. There's really no reason not to, and you can play with a bunch of different viewers and people in this community. A ton of people in here. In fact, I'd say most people in here, including myself, are beginners at chess. Well, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So again, link to the chess club in the description if you have a chess.com account, which is totally free. But if you go to chess.com and you create an account, you can see there's all types of stats and information that it stores. So it has all of the games that you played. You can see like I lost this game, I won a few earlier today. You can see all of the ratings, like that's my rapid rating. This is my puzzles rating. This is my bullet rating. So this API lets you get all of this information. So I think that's all I need to talk about for chess.com. I will also link this page right here, which is information about this API. So I found this on chess.com. It's published data-API, and it just kind of tells you how to use the API and gives you like official documentation. And then there is also some information about a potential new API coming from chess.com, which is going to be an interactive API. What that's going to let you do is actually modify or move pieces on the chessboard and like play chess on chess.com like as a robot or using the API. Now, I don't know if that's coming out. I don't know what the status of it is, but if you're interested, I will link this kind of like forum thread that I found in the description so you can see what's going on with that. Okay, so that's pretty much all I need to say. What we're going to do is we're going to download a Python wrapper for Chess API or for the chess.com API. And what this is kind of just someone has made this like simple module that takes all of these API endpoints. So the way an API works is you have all of these endpoints, which are just URLs that you can send a request to, and that request is just going to return information to you. So what they've done is they've just made it a lot easier for us to call these endpoints. So rather than us having to write all of the networking operations and all of the different requests, we just install this module, we just call a function, and then that function gives us all of the information that we want. So this Python module is available through pip. It's called chess.com. And the first step here in this tutorial is going to be to install chess.com, the Python module. So we're going to go to our command prompt or our terminal, depending on if you're on Mac, Linux, or Windows. And you're going to type the following, assuming that you're in your correct Python interpreter environment. If that doesn't mean anything to you, don't worry, you would be. You're going to type pip install and then chess.com like that. So pip install chess.com, you can see it's already satisfied for me, and then you should be good to go. However, sometimes this command doesn't work. It's really frustrating when it doesn't work, but if it doesn't work, try pip3 install chess.com, and then if this one doesn't work either, try python-m pip install chess.com. If this one doesn't work, try python3-m pip install chess.com. And if none of those work, I will leave two videos in the description that will show you how to fix your pip, one for Windows and one for Mac. Anyways, at this point, I'm going to assume that you've installed the chess.com module. And once you've done that, we're ready to start writing some code. So we're going to hop into a code editor. I'm using Sublime Text. You're welcome to use the default IDLE in Python if that's the one that you have. Obviously, you do need Python installed here. And the first thing we're going to do is just import chess.com. And more specifically, I'm going to say from chess.com. Notice I actually wrote out the word dot. I'm going to import the functions that I want to use from this module. So again, the documentation for this module is actually really easy to read. It's super digestible. I'll link it in the description. And you can see that all you have to do is just use all of these bolded functions here. And these bolded functions will return to you the response that corresponds with calling like this API endpoint. So for example, what's some ones that we're going to use here? Like get player team matches, get player stats, get player profile, so on and so forth, get player games by month, right? All of that kind of stuff. You can do all of that with this API, and I'm not going to show you all of it, but if you want to see what you can do, just go to this link. It's pretty easy to see. So the first thing that I'm going to show you how to do is actually how to print out the chess.com leaderboards. So chess.com has like global leaderboards for, like the best bullet chess player, or the best blitz chess player, and all of that. So to do that, what we're going to do is say from chess.com, and we are going to import the following function, which is get, and then leader, and then boards, like that. So from chess.com, import get leaderboards. Every time you want to use one of these functions, just write or separate the last one with a comma, and then write the function that you want to use, and make sure you import it from chess.com. All right, so I'm going to define a function of my own that is going to call get leaderboards. So I'm going to say define print and then leaderboards, like that. And all we're going to do inside of this function to start is we're going to call this get leaderboards function. So I'm going to say data is equal to, and then get leaderboards. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to print the data.json. So what this is going to return to you, this function, is actually the response from a request that was sent to a URL. So if you're not familiar with responses and requests, essentially, whenever you're working with an API, you send a request for information to an endpoint, and then that endpoint returns a response. That response sometimes is going to be invalid. So you might have a response that's like, you've probably seen this before on the internet, like 404, page not found, or 400, bad request, stuff like that. Now, we're going to assume that most of the time we're going to get a valid response. When we do get a valid response, that's going to return some JSON to us. So the JSON is kind of like the data that is contained in the response. So when I say data.json, what that is doing is getting all of the information related to the response, and not stuff like the status code of the response and all the stuff we don't care about. So all I need to do now is call this function. So if I call print leaderboard, we can see that it's going to give me a ton of information here, and it's really difficult to read, but there's just all this information. And what you'll notice is that you're going to have to kind of parse and look through the information that's returned to you in the JSON to figure out how you can get the specific pieces of info that you want. So for example, here we can see that there's like a key here that says daily. There's like another key here that says player ID. It looks like daily has like a list contained in it. So you need to kind of look through the response data yourself to figure out which keys in this JSON you're going to need to reference. Now, if you're confused by that, JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. I think that's correct. But pretty much you can think of it as a dictionary in Python. So notice how we have these curly braces. If I want to access whatever is stored in this daily key, all I would do is say data.json, and then I would put the little key thing here and say daily. And then actually, let's do this, and let's see what we get. Now it's just going to give me information related to daily. Notice that I don't no longer see that original dictionary. It's giving me the list of players that are ranked for daily chess. So anyways, what I'm going to do here is I am going to remove this, and I'm going to show you a little trick here to be able to read this response or this JSON a lot easier. Because as you saw when we printed that out, it was really difficult to kind of parse and read through it because it's just like throwing it all out, not very formatted and not very clean. So if you want to be able to read this JSON in a better format, there's this thing called Pretty Printer in Python. It's built into Python. You don't need to install anything. And all you need to do is import pprint. Now, what you're going to do is set up a printer object. So you're going to say printer is equal to, and then pprint dot pretty printer. You're going to put your parentheses at the end. And now when you want to print something and you want it to be nicely formatted, what you can do is the following. You can say printer dot and then pprint, and then you can print your data.json. So now if I print my data.json and I run this, notice that we get nicely formatted data. So I can actually read everything. It's way easier. Everything is on its own line. So definitely use the Pretty Printer when you're messing around with this API or any API in general. It just gives you much cleaner and well formatted data. Anyways, we don't really want to print all of that though. In fact, what I want to do is I want to loop through all of the data. I want to find like the top 50 players in each category, and then I just want to print out their names, their ratings, and maybe something else. We'll print out like their rank. So like if they're first, second, third, so on and so forth. So what I've just done here is tacked.json onto the end of this function call, just so that in this data variable, I have the JSON. I don't need to convert it later on. And now what I'm going to do is get all of the keys. And when I say keys, I'm really talking about all of the different chess categories. So notice we have daily here. If we kept scrolling, it's going to be hard for me to find it because there's like so many different players in here. We'll see that they're going to have other categories as well. So daily 960, we should see like blitz and bullets and like all of these other chess categories. And I just passed one. Let's go here. Yeah, so we have live blitz. So all of these categories here have different rankings. So I'm going to print out the category, then all of the rankings within that category. So to do that, I'm going to get all of the categories. To get all of the categories, I'm going to say categories is equal to, and then data.keys. And this is going to give me all of the dictionary keys in that like initial JSON response. So now that I have all of the categories, I can reference all of the categories in the JSON and find all of the players associated with the categories. So I'm going to say for category in categories, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to print that category. So I'm going to say print, and then in all capitals, I'm going to say category like that, or actually, you know, we'll do it not in capitals. And then after I have category printing here, I'm going to print out what the actual category is. So at the very kind of start of when I'm listing all of these players, I know what category the rankings are for. Then what I need to do is I need to loop through all of the players in this category, because what you would have noticed is that like live blitz, when I access this, it gives me a list of players. So all of these kind of JSON objects or dictionary objects inside of this list are unique players and information about them. So player ID, rank, score, status, title, all this stuff. We don't really care about most of this, so I'll show you how we can get just what we want. But the idea is we're going to loop through whatever is associated with each category, which is just going to be a bunch of players. So for here, I'm going to say for, and then I'll do IDX, comma, entry in enumerate, and we're going to enumerate over the data at the category. So since I know all of the categories, I can access them in my data in every for loop. So I'm going through all of the categories, right? And then for all of the categories, I'm going to get the index of the elements and the actual elements themselves from the list that's associated with that category. So when I say IDX, comma, entry and enumerate, what enumerate does is return to you the index of an element as well as the element itself in a list. So in this case, we have a list. So when I get the first player, IDX is going to be equal to 0, and then entry will be equal to all of this dictionary information right here. So just to show you what I mean here, let's just print out the entry and let's just see what this looks like. So let's see if we get a crash or if all is good. And now you can see I'm printing out the entry, and let's see if we can get to the very top here so you can see what it looks like at the beginning. And we have category, daily, and then what we do is we print out every single player's little dictionary object, right? So that's what I just did. Okay, so now that we have access to all of the dictionary objects, what we'll do is kind of print something that looks a little bit nicer. So I'm going to say print, and then I'm going to use an F string. And F string is only available in Python 3.6 and above. And what it allows you to do is have these little curly parentheses inside of here where you can write actual expressions. So I could write entry inside of here. And what that will do is it will evaluate this expression if it's something that needs to be evaluated and just display that inside of the string. So it's really nice. I could do something like 1 + 1 that would display 2 inside of the string. All right, so I'm going to go inside of this F string, and I'm going to start by saying rank, and then inside of parentheses here, I'm going to say IDX + 1. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because the index starts at 0, and it's going to give me players in order of their rank. So it gives me, let's see here, rank 1, rank 2, rank 3, so on and so forth. So I don't need to actually reference the rank key from the data. I can just use the index of the, of the entry that I'm getting from this category, if that makes sense. But IDX + 1, because our indexes start at 0. So when I'm on the 0th or first entry, I want to make sure I'm saying that they're first, not 0th, right? So after I have the rank, I'm just going to put a pipe operator or just the pipe so that it kind of separates it. And then what I'm going to display is the username. So I'm going to say username and then colon. And then inside of here, I'm going to say, and this is going to be entry at, and then username. So now that I have the entry, I can reference keys inside of that dictionary. So I can reference like the ID, I can reference the username, I can reference the name, so on and so forth. So I'm going to reference the username, and then I'm going to reference their rating. So I'm going to say rating, and then this is actually called score. So I'm going to say entry, and then at the key score. So that's actually all I want to do. What this should do is loop through all of the different players in each category, show me their rank, their username, and then their rating. So let's do that and let's see what we get. Apparently I have a syntax error or something. Let me just check this out. It's saying, what is this? Invalid syntax. Interesting. Let me have a look. I will be right back. All right, so the problem I was having here is that I was using single quotes for my string, and then inside of my string, I was using unescaped single quotes as well. So you don't really have to know what that means, but the fix is just change these single quotes here to be double quotes, or make sure that what you're using for your kind of string as a whole is different than what you're using to reference the keys inside of your entry. So I just changed it to double quotes, and now if I run this, you can see that this works. And we get all of this stuff showing up. So we have category daily. We have all of the users with their ratings. Then we scroll down. We have daily 960, same thing. We keep going. We have live rapid. We have, all of the users with their ratings and so on and so forth. So that is the basics there for how to do that. Next, what I'm going to show you how to do is to get the rating of an individual player. So that's print leaderboards. I'm going to remove that function call now. I'm going to create another function here called get_player_rating, and this is going to take in a username. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to import the following function. This one is called get_player_rating. Let me make sure that's correct. Sorry, that's actually not correct. It's get_player_stats. That sounds better. And now inside of here, we're going to do a very similar thing to what we did here. I'm going to just call this function. So I'm going to say data is equal to get_player_stats. This time I need to pass the username because we need a user to get the stats for, and then I'm going to return that JSON data. Now I'm going to print out the user stats for 3 categories that I care about. So let's actually just print this out to start. So we'll say printer.pprint, and we will print out the data. And well, it would be helpful if I called the function. So let's call getPlayerStats. Let's pass my username, which is Tim Rasika. Feel free to pass any username that you like. And it's still not printing this out, eh? That's interesting. Oh, getPlayerStats. GetPlayerRating is the function I meant to call. Sorry. So let's call that. And now we can see we get all of my stats. So I have my Blitz stats. You can see my rating in Blitz. You can see the last rating I had and then the best rating I had, which was this. Same thing for Bullet, same thing for Rapid, and Lessons and Puzzle Rush and Tactics and all of that. Anyways, oops, I didn't mean to close that. The only ones that I care about here are these 3. So if I only want to get these 3, I'll show you how to do that. So what I'm going to do is make a list here, and I'm going to say categories is equal to, and then I'm just going to type the keys of the categories that I want. So I believe this was it was chess_blitz. That's one of them. The other one that we wanted was chess_rapid. And then the last one that we wanted was chess_bullet. Okay, so those are the 3 categories that I want. Now what I'm going to do is loop through my different categories. So I'm going to say for category in categories. And then inside of here, I'm going to say print. And then I'm going to say category like that, colon. And then I'll just print the category so I know which category I'm displaying. And then after that, I'm going to print out my rating in this category. So I'm going to say that my current rating is equal to, and we can use an F string here. So I'll say F current, and then inside of here, this is going to be data at category. And then what I'm going to do is go to last, which is my current rating. And then I'm going to look for the rating. So what this is going to do is it's going to reference the category in my data. It's then going to reference the last rating, and then inside of the last rating, it's going to get what the actual rating was, because last also tells us like what time I had that rating at and all of that. So anyways, if I run this now, we get invalid syntax for the same reason as before. I'm using single quotes inside of my string, which also has single quotes. So let's just change these to be equal to double quotes, and let's print. And now you can see that it says that in the Blitz category, my current rating is 861. In the Rapid category, my current rating is 1219, and in Bullet, it is 927. So now what I will do, though, is show you how we can get not just the last rating, but the best rating that someone had. So I'm going to copy this, and instead of going current, I'm going to say best. And now instead of last, we'll just change this to best, and that's the only change that we actually need. So now that I have that, we can just print this out. And now we get that our current rating was 861, best 889, and then you can, read the rest. Okay, so that is how you get the current and best rating. Now I'm going to show you how we can get the record of games played. So to get the record of games played, I'm actually just going to copy this. And now, instead of having best and rating, we're just going to change this to record. So now you will see what happens when I print this. So let's run this. Now you can see the record in each of these categories. So the number of wins, losses, and draws for each of them. So if you wanted to make this look nicer, then inside of this, you would reference win, loss, and draw to get each of those individual pieces of data. So now that we have that, the last thing I'm going to show you how to do is actually get information about game data. So this is fun. This is nice. I mean, I'm just kind of giving you an introduction to this API. But if you actually want to get the moves that were played in specific games, or you want to see all of the information about a game, you can do that. It's a little bit more difficult, but it's still not too hard to do. What I'm going to do is write a function here. And what this function specifically is going to do is going to get the most recent game that you played, all of the information about it. So I'm going to say define get underscore most underscore recent underscore game. We're going to need a username for the person to get this game for. And then what I'm going to do is say data is equal to, and then the function we're going to use here, I'm just going to copy it in. Actually, I can write it out. It's get underscore player underscore game underscore archives. I think I spelled that correctly. Let me look. It looks like I did. So this is the function that we want to use. I need to just import this function from above. So get player underscore game underscore archives from chess.com. And then we're going to pass to this function the username of the player we want to get the chess game archives from. And we're going to return the JSON. So let me just print this out for you. So I'm just going to print data. And let's call this function and let's see what we get. So get, what is this, underscore most recent game. And then we will pass the username Tim Rasika. And let's see what we get. So what we get here is actually all of the URLs for each month worth of games. I'm probably describing that really strangely. What I mean is that every one of these URLs here is actually the endpoint that we need to send a request to get information about all of the games played in this year and month. So it says 2020-12, so that's December, right? And then we have 2021-1, so that's January 2021, February 2021. So if I want to get information about my games played in any of these things, then I need to send a request to these URLs. So you obviously could just copy and paste these URLs, but that's not very, programmatic, I guess, for lack of a better word. So what we will do instead is we will get the most recent URL and send a request to that. So we're going to say URL is equal to data. And then this is going to be at, let's see, this key here is called archives, right? So we'll use the archives key that contains a list. So archives like that. And then of -1. The reason why we're using -1 is because -1 gives us the last index in the array. And this array here has the games in order of like earliest month to latest month. So if we want to get the most recent game, we need the latest month, which will be at the very last index. So there we go. So now what I can do is I can send a request to this URL and it will give me all of the information about the games. And in fact, let me just run this. So let me just print this URL and I'll show you what happens if you actually just go to this URL. So if you go to this URL in your web browser, let's open up a new tab here. You'll notice that it takes a second to load, but it gives me all of the information about all of the chess games that I've played in the month of February. And you can see that I've played quite a few. So to do that, to do this in our code, what we're going to need to do is import another module because obviously we don't want to actually go to the URL. We want our code to give it to us. So we need to import another module here. I'm going to import requests. And what this request module will let us do is actually send a request to this URL. So now that I have this URL, I'm going to say that my game is equal to, or I'll say games is equal to, and then requests.get. And all we need to do inside of here is just put the URL. So we're just sending a GET request. This is the most basic form of an HTTP request, just requests and gets information essentially to the URL that we want, which is the most recent game URL. And then we will print out games. So let's print games and let's see what we get. We get response 200. The reason we got response 200 is because we need to return the JSON of this, which is the data, right? And which is what I discussed. Now, what you're going to notice here is that in all of these other calls, I used .json, not .json with 2 parentheses. And in this call here, I'm using JSON with parentheses. So the reason for this is that this wrapper here just allows you to use it without the parentheses. Whereas when we actually use the request module, we need to use the parentheses to turn this request into a JSON object. So you don't really have to know the details behind that, but just understand there is a reason why I have parentheses here and not on the functions that I'm importing from chess.com. All right, so let's run this. And now you're going to see that it gives us all of this data here relating to the games that we've played. So now if we want to get the most recent game, what we would do is the following. We would say we want game, which is equal to, and then this is going to be games at the key games. The reason for that is that this is the key for our data that's being returned to us. And then I'm not sure if it's going to be the most recent or the least recent game. Let's go to the bottom here. So this last one, I think this was the last game that I played. Yeah, it looks like it was. So I am pretty certain that what we can do is get the last index, or we can get the last element in this array, and that will be the most recent game. If you're confused, don't worry. We'll get to it in a second. So we're going to say game equals games at the key games, and then at the index -1. And then we can print this game. So let's do that. And now you'll notice that we get one game. And let's actually just go to this URL. You can see it was played on 2021-02-22, which is today that I'm filming this video. And if I go to this URL, then you can see that it brings me to the game that I played where I lost in a bullet chess game and I got checkmated, right? Go figure. That's one that's going to show up in the video. Anyways, you get the idea. So that is how you get the most recent game. Now, obviously, we could print this with the printer. So printer dot and then p print game like that. And then it will show us all of the moves, who was rated, the rules, the time class, time control. This only had 60 seconds in the game and there was no bonus there. Shows you like all of this other stuff too. So it'll give you the result. It will give you the time was played, the ELO or the rating of the white player and the black player. And I mean, you guys can parse through this information on your own to actually get all of the moves and stuff. I'm not going to show you that, but that is the basic idea. So I think with that, that's going to conclude this chess.com API. If you guys want this code, it will be linked in the description. I'll have a GitHub repository for it. But I figured this would be kind of a fun video. Chess is really popular. I'm really into chess right now. Definitely go join the chess club. It's right here again, will be in the description. And hopefully if we get enough people, we can run some really cool tournaments. Maybe I'll even make a YouTube video about it or something. And yeah, looking forward to that. So if you guys enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in another YouTube video.